one, Carlos Arcila. Welcome to the Map It Forward podcast.
Hi, Lee. How are you?
So happy to be having a conversation with you on the day of the first presidential debate. To have a conversation with you is kind of like the thing that's distracting me from all the fuckery that's going on over here. So this is a good thing for me today.
No, I can imagine. Thank you so much for having us here. We're super glad to be here with you as well.
You know, we recently spoke about you on the podcast when Ann Cooper came on the podcast, and we were both gushing over you and how proud we are to have you as a part of the Australian coffee industry. And right off the bat, I want to say thank you for everything that you're doing to elevate and encourage people during a really tough time in the Australian coffee industry.
Look, thank you so much. It's our pleasure to be here. I feel already part of Australia. I'm already an Australian citizen. It's great. It's great to be able to help. And we're doing very little, but what we do it with a lot of love and a lot of care. So that's the important thing for us.
You know, you feel that anytime I've spoken to anyone about Cofinet and about you, and they just gush over the fact that you can't do enough. You know, you're always looking for ways to help people. And for me, part of what I wanted to make sure that we do throughout 2020 is to make sure that we are supporting the brands on this podcast that are supporting the industry. And as we come into the fourth quarter of 2020, it's, as we say in Australia, balls to the wall, because this feels like it's about to be the hardest quarter of this year.
It's an interesting year for sure. Yes, absolutely. Yes, for sure.
How have you experienced this year?
Look, it's been I would probably put it as a roller coaster. For us, we've learned a lot about being flexible, a lot about how quickly people can adapt. And it's been phenomenal. I'm really happy we lived through this year because we're so much stronger now. We've learned so many things about the people that work with that, our skills to adapt. So it's been a fantastic year. Overall, it's been very tough. I think logistics, I think people have been very stressed, but I think we've come up stronger than where we were before. So it's given us a lot of opportunities when it all started to calm down, rethink what we were doing. Stand still for a second and look at everything you've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. And then it really started again. And then we were just, every week was a different thing. So adapting, thinking quickly, making sure that you're acting according to your values and what you stand up for. Every week, you're trying to remind yourself that, because it's been very challenging. But look, overall, I think it's been a great experience for us. We've come up a lot stronger. We've learned a lot of things. And this is life. It's all about learning and, making it to the end, looking back and being proud of what you have done. So I think today we're not at the end of it. I think there's a lot to be cut and to be said about these things. But today we're happy. Look, happy to be here. Happy that Cofinet is still thriving and existing, and it's been able to help a lot of people, not only here in Australia, but in Colombia especially, and around the world.
Yeah. Why don't we... as you guys get ready to expand into the US and to expand, that's just another chink that you're going to add in, like a link in your chain that you guys are going to add to what you're doing. And I can't wait to hear about all of that. But let's have a bit of a chat about what Cofinet is and fourth generation and blah, 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 blah. All the cool shit. Yeah.
Do it.
And you know where I want to start? I want you to speak the names of your grandfather and your father.
Absolutely. My grandfather is Hernando Arcila, and my father is Jairo Arcila. And look, it's a great time to say thank you to them, because we're here because of them. The passion that was given to us when we were young. Like I said, I grew up in a coffee farm, and it's a pleasure to be fulfilling their dreams, and which have now become our dreams.
Is it true? I'm sure it was your Instagram that I saw a picture on where you say that when you got in trouble as a kid, your punishment was to go pick coffee cherries.
No, it wasn't me, but
it wasn't you.
But yeah, it could have happened, yes.
I can't remember.
Uh,
You know what?
so,
Maybe it was the other Carlos in Australia, in Sydney. Um,
uh,
yeah,
Carlos Escobar, a
Escobar.
common friend.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Actually, he was the one who, when he would get into trouble, his dad would make him go and pick coffee cherries off the trees.
No, my father was not that mean. No, all my memories with coffee are super happy. Like I remember visiting my father. My father used to run a mill for a big exporter,
Uh-huh.
and we'll go visit him every week during the week, and we'll climb up to the conveyors and jump into the parchment. So that was the coolest thing we could do during the
Wow.
week because you're jumping up
It was
five
your
meters above.
trampoline.
Yeah, it was a trampoline. It's like literally what you do at the pool, we're doing with parchment. So it was amazing. And
Wow.
then you go so deep into the parchment that the other kids have to dig you out because you
Wow.
can't come out of your own. So it was super fun. It lasted until we were probably 13 or 14. Then we were not allowed, security started coming in and all these things that the industry went through changes. So we
Bloody
were not allowed to do.
OH&S.
Yes, yes. But look, we had fun when we could.
Yeah.
So I remember that a lot. That was probably one of the coolest memories I have with coffee.
And so your grandfather and your father, how does your dad go from running a mill to, did you have farms at that point? What was the
Yeah,
landscape of
so
it all?
so look, it started with my great grandfather. He started working with
What
coffee,
was
and
his name?
then I
It's
don't.
important to speak people's names. Because this is how we honor them, right? This is how we keep their
Yes,
names alive.
absolutely. I do remember is my great grandmother,
Uh-huh. What was her name?
Antonia.
Antonia?
Antonia. So it all started from there. Yes, absolutely. And then Hernando, my grandfather, had coffee farms already.
Yeah.
So before that, we were just working with coffee as an exporter for my great grandmother and great grandfather.
Yeah.
But farming we started 3 generations ago. So Hernando Arcila.
Yeah.
When my grandfather passed away, my father already had 3 coffee farms. And then when we started Cofinet, my father had 6 coffee farms. So that's where it all started. So my grandfather and my father worked for the same exporter for the same group of people, in coffee. So my father only retired 2 years ago, and he was there for 44 or 45 years working with them.
Wow. Wow.
Always really close to coffee on the production side and then on the exporting side as well.
I mean, this is the one, like the superpower of Cofinet, from my perspective, is you've had you bleed coffee. God rest his soul, Gilberto Barona. He said to me, you know what, Lee? Like, you'll really get to understand who knows coffee, all about coffee during this pandemic. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and you swam in parchment, and now you're going onto the business end in a different country, but you've been involved in the production, the sourcing, the exporting, the import. Do you import as well?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. So we'll go into that later, but yes, we have 5 different offices around the world now where we import our own coffees.
I'm just going to say proud friend.
Thank you, thank
Well,
you.
because I know what it is to build businesses, right? So, and I understand what it is to go to another country and have to go through the personal as well as the professional aspect of having to establish a brand new community and a business and understand the rules and understand the culture, the work culture as well as the personal culture. It's all incredibly challenging. So your journey does not go unseen and unappreciated as someone who, as I get ready to move back to Australia, getting to spend more time with you and everyone back there is very exciting. It really is.
It's going to be fantastic to have you over again.
I can't wait. I've got to tell you, I'm very excited the next couple of months. Look, I love all the experiences that I've had over here, and it's been incredibly challenging as well as deeply fulfilling. And I have learnt more than I ever thought that I would learn about myself and about business being over here. But being able to be back again as a part of the Australian coffee industry in person every day is pretty exciting.
It's great to have you back. You're going to come with a lot of different experiences and you're going to come to help improve this industry. I have no doubts.
Thank you. I very much look forward to it. I think that the maturity of the coffee industry in Australia is so exciting. And especially, the thing that's blowing my mind the most, I'm talking to my friends both in and out of the coffee industry about how, like, I haven't had a meal with somebody since March. I haven't had a coffee with someone since March. And, I go out to exercise and that's about it. That's
scary.
Well,
it's scary.
Yeah, it is. And like, I was thinking the other day, I allowed myself to dare to fantasize about what it would be like to sit in any of my favorite cafes in Sydney and have a coffee with a human. And I realized in that moment that I'm going to have to relearn how to do that.
Well, I think it's all part of adapting ourselves back to the new normal, because definitely it's not going to be the same. We're going to have a lot of changes.
Yeah.
So, but I think we're all looking forward to that, because it's been already 6 months. Like, we've been a little bit lucky here in Australia. Probably taking away Melbourne, because it's been really tough for them. But, Western Australia, Queensland, South Australia, Sydney has been decently okay, and I think we're doing really well. But yeah, we haven't felt it that bad here. It was only at the beginning we were really scared. Yes, we're really scared at the beginning. I remember my wife just literally didn't allow me to come to work. And for me, it's really weird, because I never miss work. I'm always here. I'm the first in and the last one out, and I've done it for 5.5 years, and it feels good. It's not because I have to, and I do it because
you're building something, right?
And yeah, exactly. And it feels amazing. It feels good to be here. I get up every day and I want to go to work. Yeah. But yeah, it was really interesting to stay at home. For me, it was fantastic because I have a little girl, Celeste, and I managed to be there when she was walking for the first time and all these things. So that was a really cool time of my life, because I could, those 3 months I was home, and I literally saw a lot of things that I would have missed out. But yeah, it was really hard to adapt. Even working, I was talking, I talk really loud. We're South Americans, right? We're Colombians.
Arabs, we're the
and
same.
My neighbors were really complaining. They almost called the police because I was talking from the balcony. But then if I go in, I wake up my little girl.
Yeah.
So I didn't know which one was worse.
Yeah, right.
So I ended up walking with her for 2 hours a day on the phone, working while I was taking her around in her little trolley. And it was really nice.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we're coming back to a sort of normality, because I couldn't stay there for more than 2 or 3 months. I was going crazy as well.
Can I ask you, I was speaking to a friend yesterday, and he was sitting in a cafe drinking a coffee, and I cannot tell you how jealous I was of him for just that simple act. Are you guys, are cafes over there running as usual? Ish?
They're running completely normal, almost normal. Yes, you come in downstairs. Well, people are still trying to have social distance, but downstairs and everywhere around in cafes, it's pretty normal. It's pretty normal. Here in Sydney, it's not the same, I repeat, in Melbourne. Melbourne is a bit different, but they're coming out of it already. So I think it will be like this in the next month or so in Melbourne.
Yeah, and then it's fire season, so it's a whole other level of fuckery that's about to show up, right?
Yes, hopefully that's not that bad this year, because the last 2 years have been awful. But I think it's going to be better. I think we had a lot of bushfires last year, so most of that fuel had to be gone by now, and I think they're taking precautions as well.
Great.
So hopefully it will be a lot better this year.
We're experiencing that now. We're hitting, they're constantly sending us red flag emergency warnings on our phones here in California. This week is going to be the peak of the season, and all of Northern California is on fire. All the wine country has burnt to the ground in a couple of days.
That's very scary.
It's really scary. And, they're quadrupling in size overnight. So, for anyone who's up in NorCal, we're sending all of our love and our thoughts for an absolutely terrifying time for all of it. And I really hope Australia doesn't get anything this year. The last year was horrific. Well, that was just January this year.
Yes, look, I was even speaking to a few people that we work down there, and it's been terrible for them the last year and a half. You know, first they had the bushfires, then they had coronavirus. So
Yeah.
all these things came together, and a few businesses down there have disappeared. A lot of cafes, when you were driving down, they don't exist or they've changed.
Yeah.
They're doing something different. So it's been a really rough time for them because they not only had the bushfires but the COVID as well. So once they were just recovering from one, the other one hit. So it's been really tough down there. And that's only 3 hours south from Sydney, or
Yeah,
4 hours. So it's pretty.
You know, it kind of, you know, as someone who's moving back and I have to kind of restart everything, we're pulling the shoot 5 years ahead of schedule. This was not the ideal time to exit Elixir out of here because, you know, Mapper Forward doesn't change at all. It just keeps, because it's an online business. But Elixir, we're going to head back and start everything over there from scratch. And
Are you shutting completely in the US?
we're pausing everything in the US.
Okay.
And, you know, this is, I've consulted with a lot of my friends who are in decision-making positions, pretty high up in different places in the government and in local councils and things like that. And not a single one of them said, you should stay. All of them said, leave sooner than I've planned to leave. So many of them...
You're scared.
Oh, man, I've got to tell you. A friend of mine sent me a text message today and he said, have you looked into getting flights earlier than what you've got planned? He knows the dates I'm flying. He's like, have you looked at getting flights earlier than what you planned? I'm kind of nervous about what the fall is about to reveal.
Wow. Okay.
So.
Well, hopefully he's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, you know, you kind of live with this thing in you when you're an expat of like, I'm trying to figure out the pulse of the way everything flows. You're born in a different country, just like I'm born in a different country. And while you try really hard to integrate into the culture, there's still this kind of thing that you're constantly trying to learn about, like, what part of the culture is similar to my culture so I can understand what I should take seriously and what I shouldn't take seriously. You know, it's that side of things. So, you know, America's a very impassioned society. Let's use that term. And and Australians are not like that. And so for us, we're constantly downplaying everything and they're constantly upplaying everything. And you're trying to read the landscape as well as you can and not get swept away with all the Trump kind of, you know, hype and the election hype and the COVID hype and all of this. And you're like, well, what's the facts here? What's really going on? That's, I'm not going to lie, it's really hard to read. It's really, really hard to read over here.
It's time to just pull our heads down and work and focus on our lives. Things will happen and we're just going to have to adapt. Same to what we've done with the COVID, same to what we've always done. You know, people are smart and some things we can't control. We just have to live through them and do our best.
Absolutely. And you know, this is, you know, I get contacted by a lot of baristas. They're saying, I don't know how to deal with this moment. I don't know what I should be doing. I can't get a job. I'm earning more money on unemployment, but not being at my job means I'm really isolated. So if I go back to my job, I earn only a small portion of what I'm earning on unemployment. You know, here on unemployment, they're getting, you know, $600 a week from the federal government plus what they're getting from the state government. Now, that doesn't sound like it's a lot in Australia, but that's in some cases 3 and 4 times what a barista makes here.
Yeah, that's crazy. So that is encouraging people to stay at home, and that's definitely not what we want in the long term. And you know, we want people to be productive. We want them to go out to work hard and progress. But if that is the case, the policies have to be reviewed because you're incentivizing what you don't really want to happen because you don't want to be paying people to stay home. At least that's the way I see it. But you know, it goes into the way we're educated and what we do every day, which is you want something, you work for it. And as long as you have the tools, to do it, you should be fine.
And
It's only up to us.
and that was the point that I was trying to get to, is that, you know, I guess people who haven't yet had the opportunity to go on that journey of building something, you know, people like you and I who are well attuned with what it is to build something and what it feels like to hit your finger with a hammer, like figuratively speaking, you know, it's you hit your finger with a hammer, it's going to hurt and it's going to bruise, and you know, that's going to, how big the hurt is depends on how hard you hit your finger. Obviously, I'm not talking about actually hitting your finger, but you know what I'm saying. It's this idea of when you're building something, there's going to be things that you have to learn how not to hit your finger with a hammer by hitting your finger with a hammer.
Absolutely.
And people who haven't had the opportunity to do that, this is their first moment of having their finger hit with a hammer. And that's unfortunate.
I think we learn more from the mistakes than from the right decisions we make. So
amen to that.
it's time. Exactly. So this is going to happen to a lot of people, and my recommendation is learn, look back, and make sure it doesn't happen again, because you need to learn from every single experience.
Can we focus on that for a second? Because I think someone like you you've put yourself in uncomfortable situations enough by, you know, moving to another country, opening a business, building and building and building. You've put yourself in enough uncomfortable positions that you will never admit to this, but I believe you've earned the right to impart wisdom onto people. And I'd love to explore some of that wisdom if we can.
Absolutely.
Great. When it comes to doing hard stuff, people are generally uncomfortable with how to meet a moment like this where you don't know what's going to work, what's not going to work. You don't know what's going to put you bigger in a hole. How do you approach doing shit that terrifies you?
Look, I think we all have a little chip inside us that activate us and get the best out of us. And I think every one of us have to understand what that means inside. For me, it was the fear of telling my family and my close people that I couldn't do it. And for other people, it may be something different. But for me, just going to bed and thinking that I failed at something that my family, a lot of friends were relying on me to do, it just pushed forward in a way that you can't imagine. And for me, when I get that feeling, I can only, so one word that means a lot to me, it's forward. And
Forward.
it means for me, you have to move forward.
Love that.
And regardless of the challenges you have, regardless of what's in your way, you need to move forward. And that's what I've always applied in my life. And as soon as I found that chip, it can be anything for anyone. For me, it was that fear of failing. And that pushes me to a place where you can't imagine. It just gets the best out of me and I get things done. And look, getting things done, it doesn't mean that my first idea was the one that I pushed forward. It means that I can adapt quickly, learn from my mistakes, and move around and get things going. So everyone has to look back and understand themselves and find that little chip or that trigger that helps you get the best out of you. And when you do that, everything is achievable.
That's so, I'm going to use the word wise, but it's also inspiring. Because I think that people often hear what I call rah-rah positive. And I'm not a fan of rah-rah positive. You know, this idea of I'm just going to tell you that you can do it. You know, think positive and everything's going to happen. That's not how life works. You've got to lean into shit. You've got to have an idea. I love that idea of a chip. You've got a chip or a trigger that tells you exactly what needs to be done to move forward. Sometimes you're going to fuck it up. Sometimes you're going to land the idea exactly where it needs to go. But you're not stopping.
Absolutely. Look, and we don't have difficult weeks. I have difficult weeks, and I use them as well to go and do things I normally don't like. And that means by the time I do 2 or 3 days of that, I want to go back into what I normally do. So I push myself even into positions that I normally don't want to do,
Like
which
what?
is planning. I don't know, doing a lot of admin, doing a lot of things that I normally hate. focusing on accounting and things that I like, but I just don't like spending time on.
Yeah.
And when I'm down or when I feel like I need a bit of a break or I lack energy, I push back a little bit, sit, do these things, and then I can probably last doing them 1 or 2 days. Then I'm really bored, and then I'm missing what I normally like, which is talking to people, engaging, finding solutions, being out there, being active. And that for me is a passion every day.
So you've learned how to kind of mold the energy and stress test yourself so that you can use it in a way that helps you.
Absolutely. I think all of us, we're not perfect. And to say that we're always happy and we're always thinking positive is a lie. We try to do that, but we're all going to have difficult moments where, whether it's personal life, work, or whatever it is, when you have those days that everything goes wrong, and then you sort of need that phase of 1 or 2 days. Yes, exactly. It's probably how you learn how to change that momentum into a positive momentum again. And sometimes you need to really push back, sit back, do things you don't like, or even do things you like and motivate you, and then get the energy to do it again. For me, it's all about energy. When I look back and thinking maybe what you've achieved and what a lot of other people in common have achieved, that they're very good at what they do, it's about putting the energy in. It's all about just
no shortcuts.
having energy to make it happen. Exactly.
And a big reason why I wanted to talk to you was because I think you can form as an inspiration to people who are perhaps at that point where they either don't know whether they should give up or not, or they're at the point where they don't know if they should try or not. They've never gone on a journey where they've had to back themselves. And I've always been impressed by what you're doing. And I think that the more people that we can have these conversations with that can demonstrate that, listen, there's nothing superhuman about me. The only difference is I decided to have a go, and every day I get up and I decide and make the decision that today I'm going to continue to have a go. And build.
We can go through my story and Cofinet story and see that there was a lot of times where I hesitated, where I was probably in the same position as many people are today. And this is why when I meet people and they want to start importing coffee, even competing with us, I tell them that I'm going to be the last person to tell them not to do it, because that's what I heard when I was studying. Yeah. And I said, look, the only thing you got to know is that this is not a part-time job. This is not something you can just start and push back and in whenever you want. Has to be your life. If you think this is your life, go for it, because you're going to enjoy it. But if you just think you're going to try it and you're going to, put a little bit of effort, a few hours, I can tell you straight up, it's not going to work. And every day is getting harder and harder. So, look, if you want, we can start from the beginning where Cofinet started and my story. So I was in Colombia, and then I decided I was doing an MBA when I finished my studies as a civil engineer. Mm-hmm. And I was initially going to England, and then I ended up coming to Australia. And I studied for 2 years here. When I finished my 2 years, I ended up having really good offers to work as an engineer. And I stayed here working for Rio Tinto and for Downer for 4 years. Uh-huh. But 2 years into my work as an engineer, the passion for coffee started hitting me. And there's an interesting story that I probably make a parenthesis on. When I was young, all my friends used to tease me when I went to uni. A lot of them were like, mate, what are you, engineer? At the end of the day, you're going to end up working at your farms with your father, all these things. And I would swear to God, I said I would never do that. For me, it was step back at the time. It was the worst thing that could cross my mind. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
No, me.
Famous last words.
Absolutely. And this is the challenge for a lot of new generations. We believe that working on the farms and working in agriculture and doing what our families have been doing for a long time is a step back from where we want to be. And at the time it was. For me, it was. I was thinking of my career. I was thinking what I wanted to do with life. Exactly. And I wanted something different as well. And I always thought that if I was coming back to work with my family, it's because I was going to add value, not just come in and live for what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And anyway, that was my experience back then. And today is completely opposite. Today I feel proud. I feel honored to be part of, working at the farms, getting my hand dirty
Yeah.
when I have to. It's amazing. But coming back, so for 2 years while I was working as an engineer, I started going to tastings and to cuppings and to socializing in a lot of coffee events.
Why?
I learned how to cup coffees here in a roastery, Ruben Hills. They used to have every Saturday free cupping, and I think they still do. And it was, for me, it was fantastic.
Even during
and I started
COVID, they have that?
no, this is I don't know. I don't know if they still have it right now, but they've had it for many years.
Yeah, wow.
So I went there every Saturday and Sunday, and during the week, if there was any coffee events, I will assist to them. So in my head, I was putting together my perfect idea of working with my family, being related to Colombia in a way, because I couldn't stay more years in Australia, just going back to Colombia for 3 weeks every year.
Yeah.
That isn't me.
Yeah.
We come from we're South Americans, we're Colombians, and we're very close to family. For me, it's very important. I knew I had to be there at least 3 times a year, which is what I usually do now.
Yeah, wow.
For me, it was very important to have a better contact with my family and to be and to work with them as well. So coffee became that tool for me. And at the time, I knew more about chickens than coffee. I knew a little bit about farming. You know,
I knew more about chickens than coffee. That's fantastic.
I knew nothing about coffee. I was learning from scratch. And it's really funny because the one thing that we end up being good at is the one thing that we learn literally on the streets and just of experience, of trial and error, right? Which is what we've done in coffee. Everything else I've been completely prepared for, like a lot of studies in engineering. I work with really qualified people, but in coffee, it's been completely opposite journey.
Yeah.
It's been learning as you go.
Yeah. That's everyone's journey in coffee, right? Learn as you go.
Exactly. There's not such thing as super professional in coffee. You can become one, but when you want to start from scratch, it's not a clear path of what you need to do to become a professional.
And the barrier to entry is so low, right? So anybody can have a go.
Yes, absolutely. And so, look, I was trying to put that idea together of what I wanted to do. And I had everything ready for 1 year while I was working as an engineer. But I had a really awesome work back then. I had a really good pay. So it was really tough for me. So that decision, I didn't have the balls to do it at the time, I must say. It was really hard. But then something happened in my life, which at the moment was terrifying. But today I look back and I said it's probably one of the turning points in my life where I was made redundant because the mining industry, came to an end at the moment, the boom of the mining. And that put me in a position where I really had 1 or 2 weeks off, and I said, okay, this is the time. If I don't do it now, it's never going to happen. And I got together with my brother and my father, and I said, look, this is what I've been thinking about for a long time, and this is what we're going to do. And we went for it. And look, like I said to you, it hasn't been easy. At that time, I was working Saturdays and Sundays at Harvey Norman selling espresso machines. I was working 20 hours during the week as a merchandiser for GoPro. And I also looked after a warehouse of one of my friends at night. So I was a watchman almost for 2 months. So I knew that if I went out and looked for other opportunities in engineering, I was going to get a great offer. So because I knew how much I learned, how much I was worth in engineering, but I knew I wasn't going to do that. And I preferred doing merchandising for GoPro, selling in espresso machines, and then working at the same time in Cofinet. And we were very lucky. Back then, Colombian coffee was established, but there was nothing really different. I could only count with my hands people that were doing something different with Colombian coffee. And we started, and it was phenomenal. It went really well. Felipe and I, we put a lot of energy into it. It started, and it went a lot better than what we expected. So things really changed for us after 4 or 5 months that we started. And my brother, we decided, I went and told my brother, my friend, it's time for you to come into Cofinet and really work on it. But
where was he at the time? Was he?
He was with me in Australia.
Okay.
He was living here with me. And I can't remember what he was doing, but I said, and he was so excited. He said, okay, what am I doing? Am I looking after Melbourne, Sydney? What do I have to do? And I said, you're going back to Colombia. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, yeah, man, we're going back to Colombia. And this was the essence of Cofinet, being different. I said, everyone else that imports coffee and works with coffee, they normally don't grow coffee. They're not embedded in Colombia. They just, not saying that it's bad, but they have a supplier in Colombia and they bring in coffee and they sell it. I said, we have to be different.
Yep.
We have 6 coffee farms. You need to go back, be in charge of them and create something different. And that's the essence of Cofinet, being different, the innovation, being outside the box, thinking differently.
Tell me
So
what
I
you
said to
mean
him,
by different.
different means, everyone else had an idea of what Colombian coffee had to be. And I always thought I was trying Ethiopian coffees, I was trying Panamanians at the time, Costa Rican coffees. They were insane. And Colombia was just the sweet, balanced caramel coffee that everyone wanted to have in their blends. I said, why can't we do it? And there was many reasons why, but I said to Felipe, that's not enough. We need to build these profiles. Colombia has probably the most diverse climate conditions in the world for coffee. And I said, we have to be able to achieve them. And we went back and we were probably one of the first ones, perhaps not the first, but very close to being the pioneers of doing natural process in Colombia. And the people that knew how to do it at the time, they had it to themselves. They were not happy to share it with anyone else, which is another big thing that we'll get into what Cofinet has done. So I said to Felipe, we need to be able to do this. We need to be able to do it different. And I remember the first natural batches that we did at our farm, they were a disaster. But everything that I kept hearing from people that it was, mate, this is not great, but it has potential.
Yeah,
And
that must
that
be
word,
encouraging, right?
the only thing I could hear from the comments, it has potential. I was not focusing on the bad, I was focusing on the good. And we kept pushing forward, and then 6 months after, we started creating and building amazing profiles. And then since then, it's been a chase to, it's been a race to achieve what no one else has done. And we've done a lot of mistakes on it, but every day we wake up trying to be different. And I think that's been the biggest essence of Cofinet. And my brother, probably, I am the one who speak to a lot of people and who try to connect and build bridges with everyone around the world. But the key element for Cofinet is Felipe. And I really want to give a big shout to him.
Shout out to Felipe.
Because, yes, it's a massive, he's everything Cofinet stands up for. He's been able to put the people together. He's developed all his time into it. And he's created amazing things that these days are being well known around the world. And every day it's a new opportunity for us. And that's how we take Cofinet, as a new opportunity, an opportunity to teach people and empower them through education of coffee to be able to get better and move forward in life. That's why the word forward for us means a lot.
Is he still based in Colombia?
Absolutely. He lives in Armenia, Colombia, and he lives just 10 minutes away from our farms.
Wow, what a story. And so your dad retired a couple of years ago.
He retired 2.5 years ago. And I think, were you aware of the little event that we did for him? I think it's probably the proudest moment in the Cofinet life or our history of the company.
More.
We had him over. He was coming over to meet my little girl.
Does he like Australia?
He loves Australia, yes. He wouldn't live here, but he loves Australia, yes.
My grandfather said the same thing.
But for 1 or 2 weeks, and that's it. And, and he thinks he speaks a lot of English, but
bless his heart.
Yeah, he said to me once, we were renting a car in Gold Coast, I think, and he said, I've got this, let me do it. And he's renting a big bus, I think.
That sounds like me in Tijuana.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, my dad's a legend as well.
Good on him.
We've got a lot of him. He puts himself in positions that he wants to learn and drive, and that's how we are. That's how we were brought up as well.
It's
and he's not afraid.
Say that again.
He's not afraid. He doesn't. He just goes for it, and he stand there. He talked to the girl. And he said, "Look, I've got it. You see." And then we were gonna get a bus. I said, "Dad, I'm sorry, but I have to take over." Yeah, it was really interesting.
It's the interesting thing about both of our stories is we were raised by entrepreneurs. Like we learnt it somewhere. We learnt how to work hard. We learnt how to lean into knowing that we have to keep going and going and going. Like we learnt it. It was demonstrated to us by somebody. And I guess it's great. that we're very fortunate to have seen people that came before us do hard shit so that we can know that we can at least have a go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you and the audience as well is that not everything is easy. And
Oh, no.
for example, when I look back, I had a lot of problems and things I had to resolve. One of them, the hardest things for me when I've, come into where we are now and looking back, is learning how to leave problems outside your house and learning that you go to work. Work starts at whatever hour and ends at whatever hour. And then you have to change to being a dad, to being a husband,
Yeah.
to have your second life, basically.
Yeah.
And for me, the hardest thing was to have that line and get that line clear, which these days I do really well. But before, it was really, really difficult, to the point that when I started Cofinet, I remember my wife was about to leave me on the first year. I said to her, look, I've decided to go down this path and all my energies are going to go into this. And I need you to understand that. And she says, yeah, no worries, absolutely. I'm behind you.
And then she saw
after
it.
a year, she said, are you married with me or with Cofinet? And I said, look, and that was the time I had to step back a little bit and started, focusing as well on her because she was about to grab her things and leave.
Because it can be addictive, right? Like,
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh,
I would start at 6 a.m. and finish at 12, and then I would almost say I have to go to sleep because I gotta get up tomorrow. It was not that I felt I needed to sleep. It was almost something that I had to do because I needed some energies the next day. So I wasn't even thinking that I was tired. I was thinking I had to sleep to get up the next day. So it was really interesting feeling, but it was like a drug for me. It was like I'm creating something, I'm really proud of it, and I just want to work on it. And having the space and the time for my wife at the time was really difficult, and she felt isolated. And then I had to learn that I had to find a balance. And today I do it really well. To the point that when she tells me, look, I know you can have any free day. And until now, I think I've only taken one day of work just to go. And was when one of my friends in my birthday booked a boat, and he said, we're going out, we're taking you out, and I'm not taking no for an answer because I already booked it. But and I had to say yes. And that was the day that was my little girl was born, because funny enough, this is another story. She was born the day after my birthday. So we went out on the boat. I had a few drinks. Then we went at night for dinner, and I had another few drinks. But Celeste was meant to be born 2 weeks after.
So she was.
But she decided to come a lot early, and I was a bit tipsy. We went to bed. Half an hour after going into my bed, my wife tells me I broke my water. I said,
No. How can you couldn't drive?
No, she drive herself, and I was on the
Carlos.
next drive, and she was already having contractions looking down.
Oh my God.
It was really interesting. Even the nurses, when I got there, they were looking at me like,
he's drunk.
You idiot. You're another one that is drunk, that doesn't know how to deal with a little kid. And it was completely the opposite. It was my birthday. She was meant to come out to join us in 2 weeks, not earlier. So yeah, Celeste was very interesting.
She was ready to just, in Arabic we have this kind of saying that when a baby comes early, they're going to be successful in life because they're just excited to get out there and just go for everything that they want to achieve. So as we say, inshallah,
I think she wanted to join the party.
Yeah. She wanted to get drunk with daddy.
Most likely. Well, a few years to go before that happens.
Well,
yes,
she gets boyfriends and stuff like that when she starts getting drunk. So
that's one of the things that I don't want to talk about yet.
She's not allowed to have a boyfriend until she's 52.
That's when I go like, mate, let's have this conversation in a few years. I don't really want to get into that topic. That's probably the only one I'm not happy to comment on. Because I thought she was a little boy, and I kept talking to him. I said, man, we're going to have so much fun. I'm going to teach you this. We're going to play soccer. And then it was really interesting when I found out it was a little girl. It took me like 10 minutes to breathe in and absorb. Today, I'm super happy, but at the time, it was like, a girl.
Yeah, but it's a whole different sense of responsibilities, isn't it? Like now you have to keep you have to make sure that nobody breaks her heart. You've got to make sure that nobody messes with her. You've got to teach her how to do those things.
You flip her over. It's like you flip over a coin. Now it's completely the opposite.
Yeah.
But look, at the end of the day, once you get through the emotions, because you have in your mind that it's going to be either a boy or a girl, and you get ready for it. When you hear something different, then it sort of chokes you up, and you're in a bit of shock. But then after that, it's been phenomenal for us.
You're still going to teach her about soccer. You're still going to teach her about a lot of the same kind of stuff that you would have done.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
She's still going to jump into parchment, no doubt.
We've gone out of track for a bit, but
it's all good. It's a conversation. This isn't an interview, and we've got plenty of time. It's fine. So let's get back to the idea of you've decided to open a business. Your brother Felipe has gone to Colombia, and at the time that Felipe went to Colombia, was your dad still working at that time, or was he?
Yes. So he was still working as a manager of one of the mills in Cartago, which is one of the areas in Colombia. Yes, he was still working in coffee. Yeah. And he worked in coffee while Felipe was there for 3 years.
And did he guide that?
Look, he gave us a lot of contacts, he gave us a lot of insights, but he's worked always with mainly commercial coffees. So it was very, in a way, when we started, he was always joking about a little batches of coffee because we were making experiments. And the experiments were
make fun of you.
30, 50, 100 kilos. And he was telling us, what the hell is that? What is that? How are we going to change a farm and the way we operate here with 30 or 40 kilos of coffee? And I said, look, these are just experiments. Then as we get better results, we're going to scale them up. And today we process up to 60% of his production. And this is something we're going to get into. Yeah. But a second, because I'm going to have to move.
You're going to have to move over to the team starting to arrive. So you're moving over into the other room.
8:30 a.m. here in Australia.
Yeah, nice. Here in California, it's kind of like start whenever you want. It's kind of the way it goes. Nothing happens at any specific time in California.
So going back, yes, today we process 60% of his coffees, and they're all processed in different alternative processing methods. So nothing of that is washed. And that's another thing that I wanted to get to. When Felipe went back, we had everything against the odds. So we were swimming against the river. Normally what you dream of when you're a farmer is to have a farm that is sitting at 1,800 meters of altitude, that you have some pink bourbons, some geishas, some caturas, some tipicas, but we had completely the opposite. We had a massive mess. We have a lot of catimors, a lot of castillos, a little bit of catura, and the highest altitude farm we had was at 1,350 meters.
Right.
So it was a massive challenge. Everyone that I spoke to that knew a lot about coffee said, guys, your farms are close to the city. You have to go sell them out, buy farms that are cheaper in the mountains where you really need to be, and start from scratch. And that was the easy way out, but we're very stubborn. No. So we said no. We said these farms have been in the family for 60 years. The minimum thing that we need to do is give it a go.
Yes.
And we did. And this is why, one of our biggest phrases in Cofinet is that we invest in people and not in coffee. We've seen amazing farms out there and people that have phenomenal farms with the best varietals, and they do such a poor work, but even like that, they get phenomenal coffees. And
is that the coffee, or is that the processing, or is it an understanding of all of it?
It's mainly the processing. For us, we've become, very wise in processing, and that's where we believe we can make a massive impact, because everyone in Colombia knows how to grow coffee. Like my mom, my dad, they're experts, and everyone else is an expert on how to have a coffee farm looking fantastic, how to feed them, how to have them well. Everywhere you go, a lot of plantations are beautiful.
They're stunning. Colombian coffee farms are gorgeous.
Yes, but then you go and look in the processing centers are a disaster. They smell like rotten cherry.
Right.
They're not clean. So one of the things that I used to say to these farmers, it was like, imagine you have a plate with eggs today, right? Mm-hmm. And you have the eggs, and then you leave the eggs there, you don't clean them up. And tomorrow you get a lobster and you put it on the same plate that is completely dirty. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. I like the way that you put that.
Well, we put it back to the most basic things, right? And I said to them, look, just cleaning your processing center every day after you finish, building guidelines and building a structure will raise your scores in your cup probably 3 points. It doesn't matter how it looks, how nice the farms and the cherries look on the trees. That is only one step to building a nice coffee, a nice profile. The next step is processing. The next step is fermenting. The next step is drying, and the next step is stabilizing, right? So you're only doing properly the first 20%. What about the rest? You're actually losing a lot of the things that you have already. So for me, a coffee already has a potential, and they're just dropping the potential by not doing the rest correctly. So we were born and we were taught that having healthy coffee plants was going to give us amazing coffees. But that's just the beginning of it. And that's what we discovered through joining Cofinet, that we manage by building recipes and structure to be able to repeat, because repeating is one of the most important things of what we do, being able to repeat profiles. That we managed to build a coffee that my father used to sell, I don't know, at 140, 150, what's the C price of coffee worth today. And we're easily selling our coffees at $5 or $6 a pound.
The same coffee process different.
The same coffee. So when my father in our same farm picks his coffees, and that's what he does, and then we go and do our job with our processing, we can have 3 or 4 times his price in the market. And this is where the magic comes into play.
I have to have your brother Felipe on the podcast, because I want to speak to the person, like I want to speak to the mind of the person who, how do you approach such a huge kind of endeavor, right? Like, you guys know, you've decided what you, at that point, you decide what kind of an outcome you want to get, but then you have to go through the mammoth task of executing. That's huge.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I think that the most important thing is we treated Cofinet, the processing center that we have, La Pradera, as a lab. So we've found that we visited many farmers, and we work with a lot of people in Colombia as well, right? And we go and visit them, and they have 4 or 5 lots, and one of them is amazing, and the other 3 are just not great. And usually you ask the question, what did you do different? Why is this coffee amazing and the other ones are not? And they don't have a straight answer for you. And this is because we treat coffee, La Pradera and the processing center as a lab. So we build structure, we'll build recipes. And the idea is to maintain as many variables as fixed as you can, or as controlled as you can, to be able to replicate a flavor that you're producing. And this is what we've done really well at La Pradera, being able to replicate a profile time after time after time.
And the thing that it sounds like you're doing really well is that you understand why and how you're achieving the results that you're achieving, so that you can have consistency. That's the core of a great business model, right? Like, it's not by accident.
Yes, absolutely. Look, there's still a lot of things that we don't understand yet, and that we're working on, but a lot of it is fixed already, yes, and we can consistently repeat it. So we probably know how to do it. Sometimes we don't know why, but now we have the means to control them. So that's probably another 1 or 2 years that we have to go into understanding more about the insights of what happens inside the coffee. But we do know how to achieve it now. And these are things that we're building and replicating time after time. And look, and I also think one of the coolest things of what we do is that we've seen a lot of people achieve amazing things out there. But usually when they achieve amazing things, they keep them to themselves, because that's how they can call it know-how, they can call it many things. We decided to be completely different. We decided to share everything we know with people that we work with. So we have something called the Internship Program that probably was one of the things of what we started Cofinet. We really wanted to give back a lot of what we can produce and what we've discovered back to Colombia, to help people, to help a lot of the farmers, especially in Quindío. Quindío was an area that no one knew. And I think a lot of people these days, when they fly over to Colombia, they go and visit Quindío and Armenia. And it's not only because of us. There's a lot of other people doing amazing things. But our center, La Pradera, has become an amazing place to share knowledge. And we decided, yeah, absolutely. We'd love to have you.
Oh man, I can't wait to go.
So we decided something called the Internship Program. And this is where we share everything we've discovered and all the recipes that we've structured during the last 5.5 years. We have had probably 90 farmers gone through the Internship Program. And this helps them improve their lives because we don't teach them how to do all the coffee as a natural, but we teach them recipes and we give them a guidance on what to do. Basically, plan their harvest ahead and get ready for the infrastructure they need. Because a lot of people say, okay, you do a natural this way. Very simple, yes. Sometimes it can be simple, but then you need to prepare your infrastructure before. We've seen how people create a little lot of natural, they sell it really expensive, and they want to do the whole harvest as a natural. And then through the middle of the harvest or starting, they realize that they don't have the space, and probably they can lose half of the coffee because of being over fermented. So we prepare them for what they want, and we build a plan with them. And we basically get to a point where we analyze the infrastructure they have, we analyze the weather they have and the conditions they have, and we tell them probably your best shot is to do 20% natural this harvest, 15% as a black honey or a white honey, and then the rest you have to do it your conventional wash. And let's look into your conventional wash, how we can increase the CAP score by doing X, Y, Z. So it's a plan we build for them, and we teach them all these at La Pradera. So it's not just about how do you process a coffee and how do you achieve amazing results. It's how you plan your harvest. Because there's always going to be a lot of different things that happen that we cannot control, right? There is rain, there is sun, there is humidity, there is many variables. And we teach them how to take all these variables and put them into a plan that it doesn't matter how bad it goes, that they will have amazing results. So that's what Cofinet has done really well. And this is we feel super proud of it because we've seen people producing 81s, 82. These days are producing 88s, 87s, and in 5 or 6 or 7 different processing methods. And they learned a lot of it at La Pradera. And these days we learn back from them, which is probably the most impressive thing.
There's this, I think there's a very under promoted kind of philosophy. Definitely I've seen it here in the US and even back in Australia. I don't know why it exists so much in coffee, and perhaps it's in other industries, but this is our industry, so it's what I know the best. And it's this idea of like, I'm going to hold on to what's mine, and I'm not going to tell anybody else what it's about. Because I understand before anyone that's listening says, excuse me, you and your elixir business not telling anybody about anything. I understand the irony of what I'm about to say before you all attack me. But in society and in the coffee industry, there's this idea that if we have success, I have to have success before I let my neighbor have success. Because there's only enough success to go around for one person. For me, that's it. I've got to make sure I'm looked after, and then everyone else can figure it out on their own. Then I'll help everybody else. And something that we've started to see for a lot of the guests that we're speaking to that are mostly producers. Rachel Peterson said the same thing on the podcast last week. This idea that if we help our neighbors, if we elevate the standard of the base amount of knowledge that our community is operating from, we elevate success for everybody.
Look, can I add something to
Absolutely.
that? I feel envied. I feel like they've done such an amazing job in Panama. Obviously, I love their coffees and I think they're fantastic, but not getting just into the coffees. It's getting, every time we go to a trade show, we see a booth of Panama coffees, and there's 5 or 6 or 7 of the most amazing families or producers in Panama all together brewing coffee, one next to each other.
And
you don't see that anywhere else.
Loving being around each other.
And I can guarantee you, Colombia is producing coffees as good as them, but they build a brand and they build a partnership. They build something much stronger than just a cup of coffee. And it's incredible when I see them. I wish we could build something like that in Colombia because it will take us so far. And I think they've done it really well. Unfortunately, in Colombia, maybe someone has to lead this and
Carlos,
we haven't seen it.
if anyone's going to do it, you're going to do it.
Look, we can try, but we're some of the underdogs. We're the new kids on the block. So
Who better?
if I had a
Well, the others have history. You know, they've got like animosity towards each other or whatever. They've got reasons and old feuds and everything. The new blood is the one that comes in and says, hey, listen, we've got demonstrated success in other regions. This is what we're going to start. Listen, have you heard the story of how Wilfred Lamastas Sr. learned how to cup?
no.
If you get a chance to listen to him on this podcast, it is one of the best things you'll hear a coffee producer talk about. Get this. So they realize his father, he just passed, God rest his soul. He was advising a lot of the officials with regards to the way that they traded coffee back then was a little bit different. So they had like a quota that they could trade. And so what he would do is he would get Wilfred Sr. from university. I believe he was in Germany at the time or Switzerland. And he would fly him over just to sit in the room and be quiet and listen to these official trade talks that would happen at a governmental level. So he finishes university and he goes back home to Panama and he says, we have to change the way that coffee works here. Him and all his little posse of coffee producer mates, they get together and they have this kind of realization that the way that coffee's working is not working. So they decide they're going to start an independent kind of system that doesn't work off the sea. But in order for them to do that, they have to learn what good coffee tastes like. So he has a friend in Hawaii. And he calls his friend in Hawaii that is working in a university as a scientist for coffee. And this scientist in coffee says to him, have you ever heard of coffee cupping? It's like, no, what's that? This is in the 80s.
Wow.
80s or 90s. And he says to him, he's like, all right, I'm going to teach you how to cup coffee. And he learnt to cup coffee every Friday over the phone. He would practice, him and his friends in Panama, with the friend in Hawaii. Over the phone, he would teach them what they had to do.
Wow, that's amazing.
You know, like, that's
30 years ago. Wow.
That's the kind of, they just decided we're going to learn how to do this. We're going to do it every day and we're going to practice together. Him and all the farms around them. That's how they built the Panama Specialty Coffee Association. From that.
Yeah, that's an incredible story because seeing what they are today, it just makes you jealous. It makes you want to follow, they're leaders because they come together. That's what I think. And we definitely have to replicate that in Colombia because we have amazing coffees, we're just not together. We're doing it independently.
And I tell you, if anyone can do it, if anyone can lead people in that way, in a humble way, that's not saying like, I know everything. If anybody can say, what do you guys think? Should we have a go at this? It's you.
Well, we'll definitely try. Look, I had this in my mind for the last 1.5 years, to be honest, since I've been traveling to a lot of trade shows, and I see this phenomenon happen every time. Yep. Everywhere I go, I see the same. And as Colombians and even other countries as well, because I encourage them to do the same, they're completely separate. You only see the government-run entity like Federation or Coffees of Peru that they have a stand, but they, I'm not saying they don't represent us, but it's different to have the actual producers with their own coffee right next to each other, supporting each other, helping out each other. It's incredible when you see that.
And the other thing is, Rachel was saying, we talked about this idea of, they're selling coffee for 1,350 cents per pound. They're astonishing numbers for coffee. And so we spoke about how some people have a problem with that. And she said, listen, when coffee sells and sells out very quickly at those levels, it raises, it helps everybody. It helps people that are selling commercial grade coffee. It helps people that are selling mid-range coffee. That coffee raises the price and the experience
Bottom.
for everybody.
Absolutely.
So it's not just
Absolutely.
the people who are in this little community that get to benefit from 1,350 cents per pound. The whole region benefits from this.
Yeah, look, and I also think we see it like this as well. We've done a lot of, so we source cherries from neighboring farms
Yep.
At the beginning, and we still do. Back then, it was because we didn't have access or we were not growing amazing varietals. So one of the cool things that we do at Cofinet, we're obsessed with finding new varietals. And so it's not only been processing, but it's also been new varietals. So I don't know, we started working with pink bourbons 4 years ago, striped bourbons 4 years ago. This day we work with, for example, one farmer that has 40 different varietals, and he's been leading the way in Huila. So we love that side of
Yep.
discovering and getting to new varietals and bringing them over and sharing it with people. That world is insane. However, so we were taking varietals that were phenomenal cups that were 87, 88, and yes, changing into a 1991. But we do believe that the impact is on the lower side, where,
Yeah.
for example, what we did in our farms, my father was producing coffees that were scoring 80, 81, or 79, and we managed to get them to 87. Probably that's a very successful story. But say you can make a change where you go from 80 to 84. That's where the massive impact is, because that's where 90% of the producers in
Yeah.
Colombia live in. That's the world. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things. But to get to that, you need to learn with small lots, like we did when my father was laughing about us at the beginning, how to achieve those things.
Yep.
You can't just say, okay, tomorrow we'll start processing everything and we'll achieve 85 plus copies in a farm that's never done it. It's almost impossible. But you can take it step at a time, learn, and then start scaling it. And that's how we see a lot of people. And that's why we believe we invest in people, not in coffee farms, because we believe that if anyone wants to learn and really believe the tools are out there, we're there to help them. Why? Because we've seen it, we've done it, and we know it can be done.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of really having the platform and the availability to teach people how to do it. It's teaching people how to progress and move forward through coffee. That's what I think we should focus on in Colombia.
And are people receptive? Do they want to learn? Do they want to get better? Do they see the value in it?
Not everyone, and it's very interesting because you see a year where the prices go up a lot, they give up in a second because suddenly they don't have to do much. They can sell the coffees and make a profit. It's only when things get really rough and really difficult that they're willing to explore.
But by that
So
time, it's
we
often
gotta
too
get
late,
outside
right?
of that mentality. Exactly. So it's not only just the C price and how the things work. It's about us as well, mentally thinking that we can get out of it. So we did it, and we've the 60% of the production that we do at Cofinet, for us, it doesn't care we don't care with the C prices. We don't even look at it. But it was a road of a lot of hard work. We had to do a lot of things. But what I'm trying to tell to a lot of people out there that are thinking about it is that it can be done. With hard work, with a structure, you can get to it. It doesn't matter if you have a farm like ours, which is at 13 or 1250 meters, and if you have Catimores or Castillos, it can be done. It just needs structure and good work and hard work, a lot of energy. Remember we talked about the energy at the beginning? It needs to be done like that. And you cannot accommodate yourself when the prices go up a lot. I'm just going to take it easy this harvest and then start again. No, it's a one strict journey, and you have to get onto it and you have to work hard every day.
You know, the other thing I would add to that is that you need to have an open mind, because if you're going to be stuck in your ways, you're not really open to really leaning into a journey that's new, right? If you're
Well, that's one of the challenges as well. You know, it's a shame to say it, but we've seen a lot in older generations when we go and speak to them and they have phenomenal farms. They're happy with where they are, and we know how much they can improve because we've done it and we've seen it. But most of them don't want to change. But we've seen it in a lot of younger generations that are taking over the farms of their fathers and coming in and helping, that they're a lot more open to learn and change. I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of the older generations. Take my father. He wouldn't have done it. We told him many times. It was
your father
us who had
sounds
to
so
go.
much like my father.
Look, my father is an amazing guy, but on those things, because
bit
he's
stubborn.
worked with coffee for so many years, yes, he's been very stubborn. But in many other ways, he's helped us a lot. We now his farms are full of amazing varietals, And this is something we have to convince him every day, day after day. And it was a struggle, but we have, and we've changed a lot of these things. And for example, these days, he loves the pink bourbon. He says it's the best thing that has ever happened to him. Yes, grows amazing. There's a lot of cherries. I basically don't need to do anything to it. It's resistant to rust. It's a phenomenal variety, right? He loves it.
It's resistant to
So
rust.
yes,
Can we talk about that for a second?
absolutely. So another thing that we do at Cofinet is recommend varietals to people according to how much effort they want to put into their
Right.
farms. Remember, it's all up the time and effort you want to build into
Yep.
your farm. So, for example, we don't highly recommend geishas or mochas. They're phenomenal coffees, but it's like having a baby for life. You need to be on top of them every single day
Yeah.
because things can go south very quickly. Rust, they're very susceptible to a lot of disease. While have coffees like a new varietal, for example, called Caturon, or you have Pink Bourbon, they have amazing cup profiles. They are super easy to grow, and they are very simple to work with. So you don't have to do a lot of work onto them. They will have a lot of cherries on them. It's easy to work on them. They're not very tall as well as a varietal. So it's a phenomenal varietal to work with, and already has a very different cup
Yeah,
profile.
can you talk about the cup profile? What's it? I'm starting to wonder if that's what we should be looking at for Elixir when we move back.
Look, and it's a floral cup. It's not as floral as the geisha, but it's a very floral cup, and it has a lot more body than the geisha. So we like to say that it's probably a more structured geisha because it has the lemongrass and the floral tones of a geisha, but it's not as delicate. It has a lot more body. It has a lot more roundness and complexity. A little bit of orange notes. It's a beautiful coffee, and it's really easy to grow at the farms,
That's such
which is
good
why
news for farmers.
we call it the three ticks. Production is amazing. It's easy. It's resistant to rust, and you plant them, and you have you can plant a lot of them in one space. Geishas usually need
Room.
a lot more space in between them. Yes, correct.
So I got to ask, how does your dad drink coffee?
My dad drinks the traditional tinto in Colombia.
What's tinto?
Tinto is filtered coffee in Colombia. They get a sock.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it, but the girls at the home, they don't have scales. They just put a couple spoons of
yeah.
coffee, and they know how much water they need to go through. So they will tell you, do you want it heavy or you want it light? So depending on what you answer, they'll put more water or less water through the coffee. And then they add panela,
Yeah.
which it's a nice sweetener. It's an organic sugar basically, and it's phenomenal. But he usually just uses traditional coffee.
Does he like does he explore the flavors that you guys are producing on the farms?
Absolutely, he knows how to cup really well.
Really?
Yes, he does. Yes,
That's
yes,
awesome.
absolutely. Well, he knows how to cup a lot of the entry level coffees or commercial coffees. But yeah, being a cupper for that probably enhance a lot of things that you need to go
Yeah.
for. Because in commercial coffee, you're mainly trying to discover defects and things that are not great on the cup. You just call it a clean cup, and then you evaluate the defects that are on the cup. But when you work with specialty coffee, it's the other way around. You should not have defects, and you should be evaluating the positives of the cup, right? So it's a little bit tough for him to express himself what he's tasting, but he definitely understands that he's tasting something amazing. And that was one of the challenges for us as well. Try to, after working in Cofinet for 6 months, I knew perfectly what an amazing coffee was and what something that wasn't amazing. But it was hard for me to express why and how and the notes and communicate that. So that's probably one of the toughest things at the beginning when you start. And that's what he's going through at the moment. He can definitely identify the great coffees on the table. Normally, if there's 10 coffees in the table, he'll pick the best two, no doubt. But he wouldn't be able to tell you why is it so great and what makes it different from the other ones. Or he will, but in a very basic way.
He must be loving this journey.
Yeah, he loves it. And look, the good thing is that we include him into meetings, and he's part of it. Of every single decision that we make, he's a big part of it. And remember, it's my brother and I. So working with family, it's a challenge. And Felipe and I were completely opposite poles. Like Felipe is a lot more methodical. Felipe is a lot more calm. Felipe manages amazing relationships. I'm more extroverted. I come up with a lot of ideas. So usually when we talk during the day, I start blah, 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 blah. And he goes like, mate, one at a time. I don't have time for you to throw at me 10 different ideas. Just focus on one or two.
I have to
So I'm
tell you,
usually,
we have this new term in our mastermind groups. You're the ideas person, he's the handbrake.
exactly, yes. He's the handbrake and he does it on me even before I start laying out ideas and I hate it.
Oh,
But
I have to shout out to
but when
Christina Orchard, who's in our
uh,
mastermind group. She's up in the hinterlands in far north Queensland, and her husband is the ideas guy, and he calls her the handbrake because
the handbrake. I'm gonna start. That's the new nickname for Felipe.
when he comes on the podcast, we'll just say Cofinet handbrake.
Yeah, that's it. Fantastic. Yeah, so he filters all my ideas and then he makes them happen. But I'm always pushing and he's always we create something new and before we can even celebrate, I'm asking him what's next.
Yeah.
And he goes, can you stop and celebrate for a
Yeah,
second?
I'm the
We've done
same as
something
you.
amazing. I said,
I did. In my
"Woo-ha,
mind, I celebrated it. It was fantastic. Let's move on.
what are we doing tomorrow? I like the action. I like
Yeah.
thinking ahead. I go to a trade show or have a meeting with someone else or try a coffee that was phenomenal, and I'll get on the phone and look. I tried something I've never tried before.
You know,
How can we achieve?
you know what scares me? A conversation when you and Noah and I are going to sit down and have a coffee for the first time. I'm excited and scared all at the same time.
It's gonna be
Oh
phenomenal.
yeah, man.
Looking forward
It's
to it.
just the three of us are ideas people. And so imagine the three of us sitting down for a coffee, which will end up turning into breakfast, then lunch, and then dinner, but all in one go. But it's just fun to have ideas people around.
Yeah, he's amazing. What he's
Yeah.
achieved in such a short period of time is incredible as well. So he's someone that I probably talk to every week,
Yeah.
and I call him. And when we finish up the talk after 10 or 5 minutes, he goes, "What do you wanted to ask?" I said, "No, I just wanted to say hello." I said, "Man, I've got a lot to buy," and then he hangs up. But yeah, I just when I'm done with my thinking, I'm done with a lot of things. I just call Noah and I talk to him, and then he goes, "Was there anything I can help you with, bro?" I said, "No,
I
not
just
really."
wanted to say hi.
All right.
You have to. Has he ever told you about when he and I used to work on a machine together and he was coming up with the idea of CRS?
No.
Man, little asshole. So I can say that, he's like my brother, but we were both on the machine at Harry's on Sundays together, at Harry's in Bondi.
Yes.
And, it was like there's a sea of people waiting for a table. And the ticket machine is vomiting so many tickets that you can't keep up with it. It's going that quickly. I'm coming up with, at the time, I was getting ready to launch Elixir and he's getting ready to launch CRS. So
Wow.
we're standing there at coffee machines. We still both had part-time jobs at that point. And right in the middle, like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, every fucking Sunday, that's when he wants to show me the new ideas for the logos.
That's pretty much like him. Yes, absolutely.
There's a sea of people everywhere. Sis, take a look. What do you think of which one's the best? Which one do you like the best? Do you like this logo or do you like this logo? And I'm looking at him, I'm stabbing him with my eyes. He's like, what? They're going to get their coffee? What do you care about? Come on now.
It's incredible. He gets annoyed at me about that as well. We come up in the worst time to call and probably just talk about something really important or something that is not important at all.
100%. Or we're getting completely bent over. It's so busy. And he'll turn around and say, hey, I've got to show you this comedy video that I saw last night. He pulls out his phone, sticks the speaker end in a cup, puts it on top of the coffee machine. He's like, watch, the punchline's coming up. There's people everywhere.
They're probably about to take the phone and walk away.
And you can see like the owner of the cafe, Chris, is like looking at us from across the restaurant. He's looking at us. I'm like, it's him.
Not me.
But Noah's such a lovable guy that you just forgive everything, that all his fantastic and stupid ideas that come out of him, but he's gold. Like, if there's anyone who's going to have your back, he rings me, he checks on me. He's like, sis, I can hear that shit's going crazy in the US. Are you okay? What's happening? When are you coming home? Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's fantastic.
And he's done such a great job at building what he's building.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's incredible to see what he's achieved. We've been on this journey together, and it's probably only him that has been able to achieve what, the growth and the attention and everything that surrounds himself and his brand in such a short period of time. So it's incredible.
He just keeps reinvesting everything that comes his way back into the community, back into the business. He's all about relationships and people, and he's a good human.
Yes, and we've been big part of it. So a really big shout to him, because he's been incredible with us as well.
Oh, he adores you. He adores you. He really does. I bet you he listens to this actually, and he'd love that we're talking about him.
He will. He's gonna love it. He's gonna give it
we can already hear you, Noah. Like, we can see the
I'll
smile
tell him
on
he's
his face.
paying the next breakfast.
Yeah, he's paying for breakfast when we all catch up.
Absolutely, he will. Yes.
So one of the things that I really want to ask you about and talk about is, how do you go from sending Felipe back? He starts building these varietals. You decide to elevate everything with regards to the quality of the produce on the farm. And then you decide to start exporting to Australia. You build that. And then how do you get from there to you're in 5 countries?
Yes, so interesting. The first expansion plan came out of a trip that went wrong. So I was flying back from Colombia to Australia, and then we ended up staying one day in New Zealand. And that was after starting 2 years after starting Cofinet. So we stayed one day in Auckland. I said to my wife, I'm going to rent a car and we'll go around and visit some roasteries. And I went around and I went to 5 different roasteries, and I could only see the same Colombian coffee everywhere. And I said, there's something wrong here. There's got to be something super wrong here. And so I started investigating, and then I found out that there was literally 80% of the coffee being sold in New Zealand was done through one company only. And they had 1 or 2 Colombian coffees only. I said, this is a massive opportunity to chip in into New Zealand and help them, because they need to know what Colombia is about. So it took me probably 3 months to get my ideas together. We started New Zealand, and I think we've been a massive part of what's happening in New Zealand. Since then, a lot of other companies have joined, and it's been phenomenal for them, because a lot of people that I visit there and that are good friends of us, they tell us that we were a big part of the explosion of what's happening in New Zealand, because no one was able to get in there and put different options in front of them. So when we went there, we didn't have 1, we didn't have 2, we had 30 different coffees from Colombia on offer. And the idea, I said to you guys, look, it's up to you guys if you want to support us, but we're giving you the opportunity to be different, to have different coffees, to be able to showcase a coffee and make sure you go next door and the same coffee is not on the same coffee bar and being roasted by a different company. Now you guys can decide. And I think we've added a lot of value to New Zealand. So New Zealand was also really nice to us. So already we had a lot of more knowledge to what we had initially in Australia. So New Zealand was like really great for us, really easy ride. We hired the most amazing person, which is Hugo McDonald. He's been amazing with us. And New Zealand is like a little project that came up to be quite big in a very short period of time. And the relationships we have there probably are the best, because we knew exactly what we were doing. We could execute an amazing plan, and we were adding so much value. I think adding value is the key word. Like New Zealand needed someone like us to come in and provide different options. So that was New Zealand, which we're very proud of today. And then a year and a half ago, I started traveling to a lot of trade shows. And that opened my eyes to that we're only in Australia and New Zealand. And we had these amazing coffees. We're representing all these great farmers in Colombia. I said, we have to give them a better shot. And we have to, Cofinet has to become a global brand. And we need to make sure that everyone that is sourcing for amazing coffees need to know who we are. So I started investing a lot of time. Last year I was overseas every 15 days.
Really?
Connecting, doing what I love to do,
Did
which
you almost
is
end
meeting
up divorced
people.
then as well?
No. My wife was pretty aware of it, and I dedicated a lot of time to her, weekends and weekdays. Now I'm very good at that, so that's not a problem anymore. Well, I hope so.
We'll get her on the podcast and she can
again.
tell us the wives of
Yes.
coffee producers.
Yes, that would be a good one, I think. But yeah, last year was a big thing for us because we created a lot of really cool relationships around the world. So one thing started, which is Cofinet started exporting out of Colombia directly to many places in the world. And then the second part of the expansion was to open 3 new offices around the world. One was in the UK, the second one was in Singapore, and the third one, funny enough, was in the USA. But all these plans were going to happen in March 2020.
I remember.
So you can imagine getting yourself together, working so hard for the last 6 months to get everything ready, hire the right people, get the right coffees, do a little bit of investigation of what needs to go there, where is the gap, how can we add value to where we're going, because US and UK are really developed markets, right? So very challenging to understand how our coffees could fit in there and which coffees exactly. Singapore was a little bit more easier for us because it screams Cofinet, exotic, different coffees. They love it in Asia. So we went ahead with the 3 of them, and lucky enough, we decided to stop the USA. So we had to make a really quick decision because I knew we were putting ourselves in a really dangerous zone where we had 3 new offices. Everything was blurry. We didn't have certainty of nothing. All our plans had changed. Budgets were obviously not relevant anymore. Things that we were planning were not relevant at all. Everything was different, and it was only uncertain. So I said, where do we have the most solid relationships? Where it looks more stable? And we decided to keep going ahead with the UK and Singapore, and we stopped the plans of the US. Today, after 6 months, Singapore is super solid. UK is still growing, and it's getting really solid. I think we have a great team in both countries, and obviously a bit slower than what we expected, but also a lot better than what was expected after we knew we were making a decision on top of a pandemic. So it's, Singapore this is the third 6 months, and we're going through a third container, and the UK the same. And the demand and the opportunities out there are incredible. However, the US was a bit of a disappointment for me because we have a lot of really cool relationships in the US as well. Not many, but really cool ones. People that really want to support us. And we've been promising them that we're going to open the US and be closer to them. It was really hard to make the call of stopping our expansion to the US.
Yeah.
However, we've decided to give it another go. We've completely changed things around. We've adapted to what's happening currently. So it's going to be very different and unique. So we're going to have coffees in the US, but for the first time, we're going to have an office that works there, but that doesn't have anyone there at the moment. So we've organized our team to work from Colombia to connect with people. This is on.
Oh, are you
I
there,
lost
Carlos?
you there first.
There you are.
Yeah. Things are a bit unstable at the moment, and we really need to lower our fixed costs. And Colombia and the US have very similar timeframes, right? So we're going to do it from Colombia, and we've been engaging with a lot of people through Zoom calls, through the phone, through the Instagram, and it's been going amazing. So our coffees are landing in the US in 2 weeks as we speak.
Fantastic. Where are they? Where are you going to warehouse them? Where?
Yes, the annex.
Where at? Say again.
Annex, in the annex. we're starting in the West Coast, and then that's where our main operation is going to be at the beginning. But obviously, we have a lot of plans to make sure that in 1 or 2 years we have coffees in the East Coast and we have coffees in the South. So, yeah, there's a big plan to grow our team there. But at the moment, Juan Camilo is leading our team from Colombia, supervised by Felipe, my brother. And then we're also dedicating a lot of time to make connections, not only in the US, but in Canada. And yeah, reaching out to a lot of friends. So if anyone out there in the US is interested in really different things and amazing people behind it, and we're going to be there to entertain you, to get you access to amazing
Well,
coffees.
I'll be connecting you with a bunch of people. Don't worry about that.
That is phenomenal. That's what we need, because like I said, we're a very young company. We build relationships really quick, but it's always hard to go into a new place, and the biggest challenge is not being able to be there, because when we travel and when we sit in front of people, usually most of the people love what we do and we really connect with people. But the biggest challenge this time is we can't be there, and we'll not be there for at least 6 months, or
and the rest.
we never.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the rest. I've got
This is where I was coming back to the beginning. Adapting.
When
Sorry,
we get off air, we'll talk about some people that I can connect you with. But who are the kind of people that you want to hear from?
Look, I want to hear from people that are, that want to move forward, that want to make sure that when they're doing business, that they're helping people out. It's not only them, but everyone behind them are moving forward. And that's what Cofinet stands up for. We want to create really solid partnerships. We want to have people visiting our farms and really caring about the product, not just buying something and selling it for a profit, but really caring about what happens behind every single cup of coffee.
Yeah, nice.
That's the sort of that we want to connect with.
How are you approaching the selling process?
Selling process at the moment, it's really interesting. We've been using a lot Instagram. Our Instagram has become a very powerful tool, and we're connecting with a lot of people. The reason we're doing it is because, Instagram is a great place to have a quick look at what someone is doing in 1 or 2 minutes. Not just someone telling you over the phone, but visually understanding what they stand up for and what they create and who they work with, what they do. So it's been an amazing tool for us in the pandemic, because we get a lot of people responding back to us. And then obviously from there, we try to set up a Zoom meeting or a call to make sure that they meet us face to face, because it's super important for us. And then usually from there, we understand, where we can add value and if we can add value, because sometimes people have really solid relationships but they're still interested in getting to know us. And that's where it starts. So I think a lot of people jump onto it straight up. Other people take their time to analyze getting a new supplier. And some people take up to 5 years. There's people in Australia that I've been speaking to for a long time, and it's only asked when they're already starting to work with us. It's a shame, but it's the way life works, and you respect that, because you understand that they have really solid relationships, and it means that as soon as they start working with you, they're gonna work with you for a very long time. As long as you don't screw up and you don't do something that they don't like, you're probably gonna be working together for a lifetime. So everyone has a different way of approaching new opportunities. For us, it's getting out there and connecting and talking to people and expressing to them what we do, why are we different, and how we can help them. And definitely you can't help everyone, but I think a lot of people will benefit from working with Cofinet. And the one thing that they can rest assured is that they're going to be doing a lot of good for Colombia, which is what we stand up for.
How do people get access to the coffee to try it?
It's very simple. They can text us through my email, send us an email to myself, to Felipe, or to Juan Camilo. But the best tool and the easiest tool is to send us a message through Instagram. That way we can channel that up to one of the salespeople in Colombia, and then the conversation will start from there, and then samples will be sent out immediately. So as we speak, I think we're sending, 15 or 16 packages this week, the first week that we're engaging with roasters in the US, and I anticipate that to grow every week. But yeah, we'd love to hear from everyone that is looking for amazing and phenomenal coffees, and coffees that will have a great impact in the Colombian society, in the farmers.
And we're going to include the links to your Instagram as well as your website in the show notes below. But for anyone who wants to figure that out now, the Instagram handle is Cofinet, COFI_NET, for anyone who wants to check that out on Instagram. And what's the email address?
My email address is C for Carlos dot Arcila, which is ARCILA at cofinet.com.au.
And remember, that's coffee, COFI. And Americans, when I say I, they don't hear I, they hear A. So it's I as in Instagram. Okay, so coffee, COFI as in Instagram. You should hear when I'm trying to like recite something to an automated machine on the phone. It's brutal over here.
Trust me, you speak well English. For me, it's even worse.
Yeah, no, dude. Your English is so good that you'd think that you'd been in Australia for 20 years.
I don't think so. I still make the same mistakes every day and I laugh at myself, but I only laugh when I do them. So it's sort of a thing that when it's not your first tongue, you always repeat the same mistakes. And I just go like, oh no, not again. And I just laugh at them. But it's really hard to improve from where you are at the moment because you just didn't, you didn't grow up speaking.
Yeah, you do an amazing job.
Slowly it's getting better.
There's something I would like to talk to you about that is, it's something that's bothered me about our industry for many years.
Please, sorry to interrupt you. My battery is dying, so we have 5 to 10 minutes. So yes, and if I go there, you won't be able to hear me. So yes, we can talk about that topic, but let's try to wrap it up. Because
just quickly, how do you encourage the people who buy your coffee to explain what your coffee is all about to their customers? Because we get this question a lot from people. How do I tell customers, how do I engage customers about producers and the quality of the coffee?
We've talked about this a lot, and I think the first thing is that coffee shops should be charging more for coffee.
100%.
But then they also have to be able to explain why and how. And we've done workshops with a lot of roasteries that we work with that they didn't used to sell any single origins. And I used to tell them, look, we're missing out on the best. This is not only giving a lot of hope to the producers to produce better coffees, but it's going to give you a point of difference. And I said, it's not enough to just go and buy a more expensive coffee and put it on the bar. You have to be able to tell people in 30 seconds or in 50 seconds where you're engaging behind the machine why that coffee is different and why you're charging them $1 or $2 extra. So we have set up meetings with the roasteries where we tell them, they bring all their employees, people that are going to be behind the bars in different cafes, and we tell them all about that coffee. First of all, we explain where it comes from. Second, we explain the processing method. Third, we tell them the impact that it's having. And basically, we summarize something really interesting and unique in 30 seconds, because that's probably all the time they have behind the machine. I said to them, if you don't take this as an opportunity, it'll never happen. Right. It's not enough to put a great coffee and put the information there and then just let people ask for it. You have to ask them. And I said, look, you know your clients, you know the regulars that always want the same thing. It's probably not a good time to talk to them about that. But every new face you see, you should try to engage with them and see if they're wanting to taste something different and tell them why the coffee is different. Some people would say, no, I just want my regular cappuccino. Some other people will say yes, and most likely they'll repeat that because they do want something different and you're going to give them something different. I think it's all about the way we present that.
Agree.
So we need to get better at the marketing, not only the marketing, the way the people behind the machine, the knowledge that they have about the product they're offering. Yeah. Because you need to be able to explain to someone why they need to understand why they're paying $2 extra or $3 extra for a cup of coffee or whatever it is.
No, I agree. We charge $8 for a bottle of, the retail price for a bottle of elixir is $8, and people say it's so expensive. And my thing is, it's not. This is what a latte should cost.
Everything is relative to how you compare it and what you compare it with.
If you were pricing a latte correctly and everyone was getting paid adequately, a latte would be that price too. The only reason you think that this is expensive is because compared to the latte and compared to the long black right now, you think elixir is expensive. but it's really not. It's
Look, I'm pretty sure that if the true story was to be told about someone that is selling coffee at $1 and understanding the negative impact that is having at origin coffees, at the country of origins that is producing it, many people wouldn't buy it. The problem is people don't know. They don't understand that coffee sold for $1 or $2 are having a negative impact. So I always ask people, look, you can either be part of the solution or the problem. And
love that.
don't think you are not part of it because buying a bag of coffee every month or 10 tons of coffee, you're either part of the solution or the problem. And this is a question we all have to ask ourselves every day. And there's no sitting in between. You either are part of the problem or part of the solution. And it's up to us every day. We could have been part of the problem for a long time because our parents were leading a business like that, or we enter into a business that we inherited or whatever it is. But every day when you wake up, you can be a different person and you can make decisions. Every second in our lives, we make decisions. And that's the one that we have to make every day. Solution or the problem.
What a perfect place to end the conversation. Thank you for always being a part of the solution.
We always not have been a part of the solution. We've always think and tried to be part of the solution, but unfortunately not always happens. But this is what we wake up every day thinking.
We try and do better every day, right?
Exactly. We're not all perfect and we need to move on to that. As long as we have that in our minds and we are trying to achieve it, we will in different ways.
Well, Carlos, there's a lot more that we're going to talk about in the next conversation that we have with you when you're ready. People can check out the show notes so that they can get in contact with Cofinet. And thanks for everything that you're doing.
Lee, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be in your podcast. I think you're doing an awesome job.
Thank you, sir.
And really happy to connect with you. And I look forward to seeing you in Australia. It's going to be fun. I can't wait for the breakfast and the coffees that we're going to have together.
It's going to be so much fun. So much fun. I can't wait. Peace, love, and peanut butter, everyone. Have an amazing rest of your day.
Ciao. Take care.